Hey nerds! I just got finished binging episodes 23 through 29 of Regular Show, and I am, my mind is utterly blown. I want to talk about each of them briefly, and then it's epiphany I had. Wait, the camera's not straight. Now the camera's straight. Okay. First, that's Not Great Double Date, where we see basically a classic Regular Show Margaret episode, but from Margaret's perspective instead of Mordecai. And instead of trying to date Mordecai, trying to avoid the awkwardness of the fact that she still likes Mordecai, and his girlfriend almost killed her because she's a cloud, and she was in a helicopter and was having a tantrum. I shouldn't say tantrum, but that's what it feels like. This Regular Show is really weird that it mixes like real life stuff with like normal stuff. And it sounds really generic, but I like to think of the like what Scott Pilgrim does, where it like has like a story about, relationships, but then they throw this really crazy thing into it and changes the entire scope of the world, but the relatable stuff is still relatable despite the fantastic nature of it. And this episode like is just the start of blowing my mind. And like Margaret gets a guy to pretend to be her boyfriend, and she actually gets Rigby to help her because she knows Rigby's good at that sort of thing. Gives them a script, and the boyfriend gets way too into it, the fake boyfriend, and she ends up like telling the truth and making everything even more awkward. And like the perspective shift was so interesting. I just thought it was so awesome. And I really like this weird effect cartoons on Cartoon Network are having. Obviously the main examples being Adventure Time and Steven Universe, and now Regular Show, which I already said had like an overarching plot in terms of the relationships and the character development between characters for a while now. But where season 6 and like the episodes I just watched, like they're an arc by themselves. You could watch them isolated, and you could really get into it. I'm not gonna give you a summary of each episode, but like I had this epiphany while they're telling stories, and like in a normal context, the stories they were telling about like their relationship, their fake relationship, Margaret and this newscaster she's pretending to date, were just like these fantastic things. It's like we were on hot air balloons, and like we crashed, and we were hugging each other, and we fell to the earth, and we weren't hurt because we were hugging each other, and we came down like a meteor. It's like, what the fuck? And it's like CJ's like, wow, that sounds really weird. And I was thinking, that's regular for this show. And I was like, wait, this is Regular Show. It doesn't mean it's a regular show. I mean, it has regular things it does. I mean, calm down. I think maybe I'm looking at it a certain way, but right when I thought that, Mordecai's like, well, things kind of like that happen to us all the time. So it's like, it's not actually far-fetched. It was so weird. But that, it made me think of how, was it J.Q. Quintel said that he mixes, or the whole staff mixes stories from their lives with, like, their outlandish imagination. So, like, some of this is kind of autobiographical, probably. Mordecai and Rigby dropped out of art school. The voice of one of the characters, Mordecai, is done by the creator. I think it's a little obvious, and I love it. And then there's Lunch Break, where Mordecai and Rigby are forced to eat a giant sandwich because they took advantage of Benson's kindness. And they just go into all these stories about their past trying to eat food. And I thought that was like really fun. It was really nostalgic. And I thought it was just going to be like one flashback, and then like the rest of the episode was going to be, how Regular Show regularly goes, and goes like really outlandish at the end. But it didn't. well, they kind of like substituted that for having a wild story at the end, in like them just making up a story in their imagination, which was really cool. It made it seem like a regular episode, but still technically grounded it in reality in terms of like everything that happened in it. And it was really awesome. I really love how Mordecai and Rigby's relationship is kind of plotted throughout the subtext of them trying to eat food together, um, which is the thing stoners do. Not to say, J.Q. Quintel is a stoner, but if you look at any of uh, the panels, he says things. And if you look at, there's actually stuff on YouTube of the stuff he did before a regular show that involves the characters, some of the characters of a regular show. You'll see what I mean when I make comparisons and say things like that. Dumbtown USA was really awkward and really cool. I loved, like, almost felt like a superhero story because Muscle Man's getting married and he's actually strong as fuck. And, like, he's getting mad. He's getting, like, he's like a giant baby having a tantrum. And he knocks a chair into a wall and the legs stick in the wall. It's like a superhero wedding. Like, that's what it made me think of. It's like awesome, and Mordecai did a really, really silly thing. A really silly thing that I didn't expect him to do, but really is for his character. And, like, I felt for him, but I was like, man, that was not the right way to go about things. I was like, grand romantic gestures are great, but there's a certain thing about being in a public space and doing certain things. And I think even like following your gut and being true to yourself, like there's certain contexts for telling certain people, I want to do this, or I want to do this, or I still have feelings for this person.